President Julius Maada Bio on the 27th November 2024 officially inaugurated the brand new transit transport terminal and traffic lights at Lumley. The terminal and traffic lights are part of a $52 million grant from the World Bank to support urban mobility through integrated resilient urban mobility projects. Other components of these projects include 50 buses, of course, the Waka fine buses, 4 pedestrian bridges, 77 bus stops, and a market at Lumley. However, citizens have raised concerns over the low understanding of the use of the traffic lights among other facilities that have been provided by this project. So this morning, to get ourselves, of course, the public gets themselves better understanding of the facilities, we have in the studios Indolo Shaka, who is the director at the Ministry of Transport and Aviation. Indolo, it's a pleasure having you in our studios this morning.
Thank you.
This is quite huge in terms of infrastructural development. Help the public understand a bit as to what's the other components of these urban mobility projects that is being supported by the World Bank.
Thank you very much, and I'm happy to be here again. We've been here over and over again and in other media platforms. The Integrated and Resilient Urban Mobility Project is for short called IROM, and it was launched in 2019. It was a 5-year project. We had a 1-year extension because there is just one more infrastructure component that we need to complete. Hence, with our development partners, we thought it fit to have a 1-year extension to complete it now in June 2025. Every other aspect that we promised in that project has been delivered, and we can detail that as we go on. The 50 buses, the 4 footbridges, in fact 5 in 4 locations, the bus stops, the roads and the traffic signals, the transit terminal, all of them have been, including soft components of building capacity in about 4 different institutions, including Frabe College, where we train 2 masters and 1 PhD student on in the engineering department to focus on urban mobility, and bought equipments for different institutions, built and improved on the bus station where we have the current Sierra Leone Public Transport Authority, which never existed in Sierra Leone to regulate public transport. So all of these, so I will tell you very, very good sitting here that 95% of the project has been completely delivered. The one we are working on is to complete the market just by the terminal that His Excellency commissioned just few weeks ago. So we are very, very much in control of it, and we are happy that what is meant for the people of Freetown and Sierra Leone under this project will be delivered completely. And you are right, it's a $52 million grant, $50 million from the World Bank and $2 million from the government of Sierra Leone. Yes.
Is the cost commensurate as to the facilities that have already been erected across various areas, including the Waka fine buses?
Very good question. In fact, because of this question, the World Bank I have had the privilege to have a presentation in Washington, D.C. to their management, how we managed to $50 million or $52 million to deliver with such an impact. Because all over the world, I will give you, in Ghana, they are putting together almost complete $400 million for an urban mobility project similar to ours. In South Africa, it was a $1 billion project. Urban mobility projects are always in the hundreds of millions. We were one of the first countries to use 50 million and yet see the impact on the public. The impact, by that I mean how many facets of infrastructure and soft components that we delivered under this one, but also moving people right now. We are moving about an average of 25,000 people every day. And when we improve the deployment of the buses to 48, because right now we are deploying an average of 40 buses per week. When we improve that to 48, that number will increase. When the bank came and see the fact that with 50 million, they have now asked IROMP, this project, to use this model to roll out in other parts of the world. So 50 million in the context of infrastructure projects and urban mobility is like a drop in the ocean. but we made the best use of it, and many people are looking at to how we did that.
The most talked about in this project, aside the Waka fine bosses, is that of the provision of the street lights across various parts of the country. Thankfully, when some of us were coming up as a small boy, the traffic lights, across the country.
But there are street lights as part of this project.
Again, the traffic light, let's start off with the traffic lights. When some of us were coming up as small boys, we used to have these traffic lights and street lights. See for us residing around the eastern part of Freetown, Ferry Junction to be specific.
Yes.
And nowadays, when we see these lights, these street lights, these traffic lights, it reminds us of those days. But again, the use of these street lights is what so many people find very challenging. Not just challenging, but the abnormal use of street lights. For some areas, you see the street lights are on, and for many other areas, it seems just like carcass or perhaps mere decorations that are there. Take, for instance, a lodge. I've never seen that one come on since it was being erected. What's the problem? Help us understand.
Thank you for giving me the privilege to make this dichotomy. Now, under our project, we installed traffic signals at 7 intersections.
Okay.
So we have 3 clusters at Lumley, what is Regent Road. You have the Leone Junction going to Beach Road, and then the police station roundabout, that is 3. Then Aberdeen Road, that is 4, Moritong Junction, that is 5, Congo Cross, that is 6, and Ferry Junction. All of the ones we install under our projects are functioning. Now, if you see anyone not functioning, it's either because we had a power surge that has caused some circuit issues, but we have got the spare parts in town and they will be replaced. If you noticed, about 2 months ago, pedestrians hit 2 of our poles. We had to replace them. I mean, that's a different conversation as to how citizens who are reckless about driving should be responsible for destroying public assets. That is a bit beyond our domain. But they are functioning, we replace them. Now, it's a very good question. You mentioned the ones at Lodge. These were done under a separate project, completely under the Sierra Leone Roads Authority. But notwithstanding that, because we want to synchronize everything, we are now in talks with the SLRA to see how we can engage the contractor for that, so that we bring them all together. Like you rightly said, one of the areas is not just Lodge, it's in an area we used to call the Light. We used to call it the Light because it had one of the biggest traffic signals when we were growing up, as you said.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. You're from the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, correct?
Yes, please.
And SLRA is on the Ministry of Transport and Aviation?
Not necessarily. It should be, I would say, openly on air. But in our country, in most other countries, the equivalent of SLRA is supervised by the Ministry of Transport and Aviation. But in Sierra Leone, it's under the Ministry of Works and Public Assets.
So with the road issues, transport issues, and aviation, it's on the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, correct?
Yes, not road construction, but road safety is under us, yes.
So, and we talk about collaboration. I thought it's the same government that MDAs work for. I thought it's the same people, the people of Sierra Leone, that all these MDAs work for. So it beats my imagination to understand that we're talking about these and there's, you know, segmentation of, well, that's not under this project, when the MDAs are supposed to be working for the government, for the people of Sierra Leone. I don't understand it.
Well,
how come there's no collaboration?
I will pick up from the work you said, suppose. And suppose doesn't necessarily mean it happens. Suppose, yes, it should. Now, like I told you, these are different institutions under different supervisory ministries, carrying out
who are
different...
one phone call away from each other. So
this, I'm answering a question asked. So let me finish answering that question, then I will answer your question.
I'm so sorry, Indolo. Yes. Every question is quite important, and we're dealing with the same issues.
No, I did not question the importance. I'm questioning the sequence.
I understand that. I'm just stating that for you to get it.
So I've done it. So if I can answer the question.
So as far as the people of Sierra Leone are concerned, they're really not interested on who's leading what project. It's just these facilities are there, and as a people, we're supposed to enjoy them. Like I said, it's just one phone call away from these different MDAs to work together and ensure that the money that was spent to procure these things is fully utilized.
There is no qualms about what you're saying. Your question is important, if only I can answer it. So I was saying, sequentially, he asked a question about specifically naming an intersection, I needed the public to be very clear, in as much as the public are not interested in the background. And I agree with you, it's not for the public to know who does what. What they need to know is that these things are functioning for our benefit. Yes, exactly. And I agree with you. But the public also need to be aware that in case they thought, well, this was done under the project, this is the clarity. However, I am taking one more step, which is bringing me into your domain of question, is to say that prior to today and hereafter, the engagement has started. You've got to engage other MDAs. That's like you rightly said, it's a phone call away, it's a meeting away for us to come together, because these are contractual matters. It also involves private sector institutions. Right. So I will not just barge in and say, well, we have fixed hours, so you should get the light and Kingama Road as the lodge working. I should have to go through what the process is and why is it not working, understand that, collaborate with SLRA and the private sector so that we get all working to come to your point, which is to say the public doesn't care. And I agree with you 200% on that. We don't have to bore the public with, oh, it is SLRA or it is Ministry of Transport. No, what we do, we go back room, fix the problem. I was just trying to dichotomize what he asked about the fact that IROM project has delivered on what we should deliver, but there are other aspects that are not directly under our domain, and we are working to fix that as well.
With the lights, the traffic lights, it seems public education on how to use traffic lights is a challenge. Some of the people have never lived in an environment where there's traffic light. Yep. Some people who even lived then do not even remember how to use it. Well, it's a challenge. I see sometimes that when it's green for the vehicles to move, that's when you have some pedestrians attempting to cross, which in itself is a traffic hazard. What are you doing for public education?
I mean, you're spot on that. We've first of all, for public education, we engaged Talking Drum Studios. They've gone to all these intersections, did public sensitization, demonstrations, and all. We've gone on radio, we've gone on TV, we've put out animations on all social media platforms, engaged schools on this. But with public education, and like you rightly said, if somebody was born when there was no light, they are now turning 30, so they've lived 29 years with a psyche of crossing the road without a light. And to then reverse that within a month, you cannot. So we need time. I'm not surprised that this is happening. We predicted all of this because you need time for that to come into the psyche of somebody to know that, okay, when I get to this intersection, there is actually a light here, I should wait for the green man. Sure. You need that psyche because you've been crossing the road for 15, 20 years of your life without looking.
Another set of people.
That's not an excuse. We are pushing hard on it, but it will take time to sink into the psyche of people.
Another set of people who need to understand how the traffic lights work is the traffic police.
Thank you.
I've had an encounter with the traffic police at Moritown Junction. I was going by the light. It said red, so I knew I had to stop as a driver. The officer was signaling me to move. I refused. So it's either you're controlling me or the light is controlling me. One of you would have to make a choice. It says red, I should stop. The officer was insisting I should move, so I refused. So even the traffic police officers understanding when it says red for the vehicles, the drivers would have to stop. You can't tell the drivers to move when it's red. It's contradicting and it's conflicting, especially for drivers who are not used to it. They would not even understand that this is what I ought to do. The traffic police officers themselves need to understand this.
I would say thank you for making our case. I probably do not even need to talk because you've made the case. We've had engagements with the police. They've given us some circumstances under which they need to override traffic signals, and that is all over the world. In our context in Sierra Leone, maybe when the president's motorcade is about to go, because they have to stop certain intersections, then you will not get the traffic signals to work well. I can understand in those contexts, or for instance, there is an accident in the intersection, you in the period of say 10, 15 to 20 minutes, the police might need to override so that you get safety, because all is in the sense of safety. But what I don't understand, and what we are engaging the senior police officers, is to say we don't understand when all of these circumstances are not in play, yet your officers on the road, and particularly Moritown Junction is notorious for that, they still call you when the light is red. I have one of my staff, our communication specialist, actually refused to move, and the police said, call the vehicles behind her to move and say go, because he no one for go. And this is a struggle and a challenge. But as I said, all of these will need continuous engagement so that we understand, because if you continue to behave like that, you undermine the very understanding, like you said, of people who are now the first time users of traffic signals. So, well, what is what? Because if the police is calling me when it's red, then it means red is not stopped.
Sure.
You know, so this is what we are working with all stakeholders, not just the police, but the motorbikes. Now, if you look at the kekes are stopping at the signal intersections.
Even bikes.
Sorry, the motorbikes actually is what I want to, because of constant engagement. When we started, they were not. So we will keep at it. That's my message always. We will be stubborn when it comes to doing what is right. And we will keep at it. If it means having 15 more meetings with the Inspector General, if it means even paying for training for their officers on the ground, we will do it. But these lights are here to stay, because we have to elevate our society to meet with international standards. You cannot have traffic signals, and we are going to install more. If I have time, I will talk about the new project we have brought on the in the ministry. We are going to install more traffic signals. So we've got to get used to it, because it is actually safer for eventually for the public.
Indolo, the essence of having these facilities in country needs not to be downplayed. As you rightly mentioned, Sierra Leone needs to stay apart as to what's happening in other parts of the world.
Sure.
But again, have this body thought of the essence of having cameras in these intersections where these street lights are situated?
Very good question. Very, very, very good question.
Because
this has come up.
I remember at some point in time I visited another part of the world wherein you see they have cameras.
Yes.
You just see flash, just like that.
Yep.
And it's camera. They do capture the number, the plates of the vehicles who default, and they are being bought to book.
You are correct.
Essential now, at this moment.
Well, I always like to say reforms should be contextual, gradual, so that it becomes sustainable. I don't just like to copy and paste what I saw in Singapore, or it's by stage. Now, for instance, we need to deal with the traffic management issues that we have first of all. Because if I put a camera now at Lumley, it would be of no proper use, because right now, just to clear Regent Road Junction, right, is what we are working on. We are trying to get a space for them by the bridge, the temporal market, to move all the bikes and keke, because they are creating big friction, and that friction is what feeds back the traffic all the way to the roundabout, so that when the lights turn green from either Spur Road or Wilkinson Road, you see that people are not able to join because the queue is already full. It starts at Regent Road. Now we need to deal with this. Then we will elevate to the area of enforcement in terms of cameras. But that has been factored in our new project, to add the cameras to all the traffic signal intersections, so that we will see what is happening at night or when nobody is watching. But also, when you begin to talk about cameras, it goes beyond just transportation. It now involves security issues. It involves your privacy as well. I cannot just be taking pictures of you and your activities if we don't meet all the privacy laws.
But there's no privacy in the streets.
No, but you got to the data you collect out of them, because it's a massive data that you get when cameras are taking people. You got to know what you do with those data. So the data protection aspect is what I'm talking about. But it is part of the plan, but we cannot do this out of the police and ONS and the Ministry of Internal Affairs. So these engagements have started. We have started discussions on that not once, in terms of how we institute the cameras because our interest, particularly on traffic, will be for enforcement, but then the police might need it for crime and intelligence for ONS. So how you manage, say, the control room of that has to bring together all of this. In fact, in other countries, it is the police that manage the city's lights, not Ministry of Transport.
Sure. Let's talk about the inconsistency in the traffic lights themselves. In some areas, it's very inconsistent, like the Spur Road coming towards Lumley Police Station. there are times when it signals with a countdown with the numbers on how many seconds you are away from the next color.
Yeah.
Sometimes it doesn't indicate the countdown. It's only showing you the color of the light and no countdown. What's happening with that inconsistency? Are we struggling to properly manage it?
Like I said, that might be a technical issue, and it's good you brought that to my knowledge. I use that road almost every day, and I have not noticed that, but should that happen, we will engage the company. It's a local Sierra Leonean company that is managing all of these lights on our behalf, which is kudos to the country that we have local engineers who are able to manage it. But there are times when glitches will happen. And if that has happened, I will follow up on that, and we ensure that the counters, because the counters are meant to manage the patience off so people who are in the queue, so that you know it's 20 seconds you have to wait. And so it's important that it functions continuously, not haphazardly.
What about the street lights? The street light system is a challenge, especially when it's dark. And we seem to have a pattern of inconsistency. So far, the street lights that work well at the West End is the road after Limcoquin University going towards IMAT. It seems that's okay for now, but Wilkinson Road was that beautiful not too long ago. But the street lights are out, and it's really dark at night moving along that space. Perhaps for drivers it's okay with their lights, but with the pedestrians and for security reasons, it's not good that these streets look really dark. What's happening with the street lights?
Well, you're taking me out of my domain, because street lights are really not the domain of the Ministry of Transport. I know you will say, okay, well, that's the public doesn't care, but I am here to speak about what I have
but
data
doesn't
around.
This component...
So, yeah, and that's where I'm coming to. When we did the traffic signals and did some road works, we thought it fit for road safety purpose, as you said, because road safety is an issue for us. That for the last mile, for getting ladies at night to feel comfortable to walk on we did some meters of street lights, and these street lights are functioning. But to say the entire Wilkinson Road, lighting up the city, well, I will tell you that is a bigger discussion beyond what...
Whose responsibility is it?
Well, we have the Ministry of Energy, of course.
Now let's talk a bit about the Waka Fine buses. Is this project the supervisors of the Waka Fine buses?
Yes, the Waka Fine buses was part of this project, as I mentioned earlier. Yes.
There has been a lot of concerns with regards to the revenue generation models of the Waka Fine buses. At the moment, is it economically prudent in terms of is it generating the required funds as expected?
Yes, of course. We are not where we are, but in terms of break-even and even making profit, yes. Like I said, we have not deployed all 50 buses on the ground every day. Well, you even can't. You have to hold some in case there are accidents or you need to replace. But we are improving on that gradually, and I am not aware of any challenge in the model, because we've signed the contract with a private company, MTC, which is a makeup of all the informal operators that we brought together with some private sector investors that are running the buses. So we have signed the contract, and we are working on fine-tuning and perfecting in terms of improving on the revenue. One of the steps we need to take, or we have taken already, is to move from the paper ticket to the electronics ticket.
Again,
so that's
the area that I wanted to draw attention.
Oh yes, so that's why I am bringing it up. There has
been a lot of concerns as to the fact that people do reuse these tickets,
yes,
and other people do print out tickets,
yes,
that they do sell out to people, as opposed to the tickets that are sold in the box.
So we plugged that out. We had an issue with the previous service provider. We had to terminate service, and we have moved on from that. But the original purpose of the project was not to get stuck at paper ticket. Yes, it was to introduce the reform, but we need to move forward. And we've completed the procurement process. We are engaging in talks now and negotiating with the new contractor who is going to be doing the revenue collection and distribution. And part of it is to introduce as early, probably between now to February, the electronics and the mobile payment system.
Device mobile app, it's been scanning.
Yeah, so you
There
can
you
use
go.
your, just like you buy your EXA, you should be able to buy your ticket using Orange or AfriCell money.
You know, the sorry, the people would, you know, it would be much more convenient for the people if all these traffic lights are put under a centralized system, as opposed to having this project has its own controller of the area they installed, that other project. Should the people look forward to collaboration leading to this outcome of all these traffic lights
Very
put
intelligent
under the
question.
same?
Very intelligent question, and actually that is the direction. Now, the reason you have these projects with transport is because nationally and internationally, connectivity is with the Ministry of Transport. How you connect people, goods, and businesses, both the local, regional, and international connectivity. That's why you will have the airports under us. That's why you have the ports under the Ministry of Transport. That's why you have urban mobility. But now, in our country and our laws, managing public assets, transport, public infrastructure, is the domain of the Sierra Leone Roads Authority. So what will happen with all these 7 intersections? After the defect liability period with the contractor, we will hand them over to SLRA. And to do that safely, part of the process of handing over is to get the SLRA engineers to be trained currently with the contractor managing these lights, so that at the end of our contract with this contractor, they will vest into SLRA. So you are correct, so that SLRA becomes the sole controller of every control room for every traffic signal, whether they were initiated by Ministry of Transport or not.
Does this project signal the need for more roads to be constructed within the city?
Look, we have about 11,400 road network of roads in the country, right? I will first of all say 2 things. 1, let's focus on the existing roads that we have. But 2, particularly on urban area, and I have said this over and over again, 60 to 70% of the congestion are down to one main thing, which is lawlessness. Now, if you have somebody doing loading at peak time, that's when you have a truck blocking a 2-lane road into 1 lane and they are offloading, or a container is standing there. That creates the issue. It's not more roads necessarily that you need. Fix the discipline of your existing roads. See that with all our discipline, now we need to build more roads. But if you continue building more roads without the discipline, those new roads will only be built for private sector to use as car parks or as construction sites. They bring their stones, they pour it on the road, or as second-hand dealers selling their cars on it. And that's what is happening now. Or you have restaurants like along Wilkinson Road using 1 lane as their car park for their customers. I don't want to name any specifics, up to even the hospital right at the roundabout, and we had these engagements with them. So now we are forced, by right, the buses are meant to use the outer lane when they're applying these routes, but they are forced into the inner lanes because you have people parking alongside. Now, we are taking steps. We've bought 3 tow trucks, and we are going to initiate towing vehicles along these corridors and take them out, and you will pay very good money to get your vehicles back. But these are just 1 step, and we are also working with the police on that. So enforcement is key to ensuring that the reforms to get why government put taxpayers' money into building roads, and so that you don't get at Ferry Junction people using cement trucks after upgone to line up to go and take cement on the public road, forcing the public to get a queue all the way to Eastern Police. It's not fair. It's not fair because it was taxpayers' money that was used to do these roads, so that we create ease of access for people to go to their work, to hospital, to wherever you are going. If you are doing business, factor something, i.e. I am buying 10 trailers to come to Sierra Leone to do business. Factor where you have to park them. It should not be the public road that should be your store or your park or your construction site or your second-hand dealing.
And continuously, the government seems to be giving blind eye to same. Road safety authority is not too far from
I won't abdicate the Ministry of Transport or the police. We all have to continue to push. That's why I said earlier that for us to change Sierra Leone, those of us who want to do right must be twice as stubborn as those who want to do the wrong. I will not keep silent. We will keep at this. That for traffic management, we got to get people off the road who are not supposed to be there.
But
And
that
we will
also
continue on
leads
it.
us to doing the right things from all levels. I recently did a story on parking in Sierra Leone, in Freetown.
Yes.
You find many buildings, especially within CBD, but provision for parking has not been made. And each of those buildings cater to a minimum of even 5 or 10 people who either work at those establishments, who don't have a parking provision. Talk less of the customers who come to that facility. What is the public really supposed to do? You're going to a building in the CBD. Am I supposed to park my vehicle at the West End or park at the beach when I'm going to Shaka Stevens Street? These are problems that have not been solved. Now the burden is on the people who did not create the problem. You think that somebody somewhere is to enforce that before you erect a building, you should provide your structural plan. What is the parking provision for the vehicles who would be parking there? Like we see the FCC building, the new city
The
hall.
only brilliant building in Freetown. That's one of the few brilliant buildings in the country.
Very few of these
Very
buildings
few.
have parking provision, but it is supposed to be that every building should have. You see, in advanced countries, either it's the ground floor,
Sure.
some it's even the top floor, but there's provision for a parking lot. We don't have it.
We don't have it.
What are the citizens supposed to do if they're going to these places?
Good. Two answers I will give to that. There is the short-term response measures to our existing situation, right? But your question is already begging another question or an assumption. That assumption is that all of us should drive to the CBD. And when you are elevating cities these days, those of us who've traveled out, accessing CBDs now is, in fact, you hardly want to drive there because of the cost of even accessing to go to the CBD, right? Forget about the CO2 and climate change issues. But the fact remains that everybody cannot drive to the CBD. That is why in the medium to long term, we have the Waka fine buses. You park your vehicle at UU building, hop on a public transport and go to the CBD.
How many parking provisions do we have that can cater to, you know, there's an increase in the population size of the city and the registered vehicles.
Yes, so you have already alluded to one of the solutions, that the design already from the beginning had its flaws in terms of how, but you could,
which can be corrected by the gentrification process ongoing.
So we have plans within the FCC, we have plans within the SLRSA in terms of doing organized parking within the CBD. There has to be organized parking, and the SLRSA and the FCC are working on that. There is a plan within the mayor presented. They are working with SLRSA to sign an MOU as to how they do the CBD parking regeneration, it's called, under FCC. How we organize that. That is the local council's direct domain in terms of organizing the CBD and see that we get organized parking. But even with that, you cannot get every vehicle to come to the CBD and find a place to park. It's just all over the world. CBDs are congested. They are very small. You cannot get everybody to go there. And so I am proposing two answers. One, in the medium term, let's improve on our public transport. That is why the key slogan for IROMP was moving more people than vehicles. Let's don't just have vehicle in mind when we talk about public transport. Let's have people in mind. Moving you doesn't necessarily mean with your vehicle. We should have, that's why the buses take 70 people sitting and standing. That 70 people, if you put two of them in an SUV, it's 35 SUVs. You're going to create congestion. But you have moved 70 people into the CBD with just one bus. So let's elevate ourselves to say, let's look at this long-term motive that you don't need to be big man by sitting in an SUV. You can sit in a decent public transport and go into and do your business in the CBD, which I have been doing recently. When I go to the CBD, I take the Waka fine bus back to Yi building. It doesn't take anything from me. I feel, in fact, very easy, stress-free to take my Waka fine bus at Yi building, go into the CBD and come back. So this is where we should be looking at, not trying to get vehicles into the CBD.
Hindolo, as we try to wrap up this segment, will you just aid the public as to the cost for the Lumley Markets project?
The cost for the Lumley was about $6 million, plus or minus. I'll have to check what is the perfect. That's the market and the terminal, though, not just the market. So that is for the Lumley infrastructure that we're doing. but we just finished the terminal, so we are working on completing the market.
What's spending? What's still to come in this project?
Just to complete the market in this project, but we engaged with our development partners, particularly the World Bank, and we are moving on to another project called the Connectivity and Agricultural Market Infrastructure Project, which has as one of its components an urban mobility, which is to improve on already what we've started under IROM.
So IROM is fully completed?
Yes, okay. But for the market infrastructure at Lumley, when that is finished, we close it in June, by God's grace. And we move on to much of rural connectivity. We're going to be connecting bridges where you used to have the ropes that they used to, the chain to draw the ferries.
The local ferries.
So we're doing that in the next project, but also improve on IROM as well.
All right, thank you, Hindolo. You really got that, Samuel. Mr. Navo just replied to you on our Facebook page. Proud Man U fan. All right, Ambassador. Don't worry, we'll protect your mental health. It's in place.
Oh, my God.
At this point...
Mr. Navo made me laugh.
He got you right there. At this point, this is what I would like to end today's edition of Wake Up Sierra Leone. Would like to say thanks to our guests for their time.